Welcome back to War Room Pandemic on all of our distribution platforms. Over, 6.5 million, 6.6 million downloads. Did the special yesterday with Dr. Ludwig, the geopolitics of the CCP's war against America. All week we're doing 1-hour specials that'll be up after the show. I've got the complete committee on the present danger, Roger Robinson, Kyle Bass, one of the top hedge fund guys around. We're talking about the economic war, the information war, Lian Chan Han. We've got a whole raft every day. Today we're going to have Frank Gaffney and Brian Kennedy walking through, comparing this to, which I got a little bit in the other night with Jesse Waters and also on the show, comparing it to the Cold War. We win, they lose. Ronald Reagan's great moment. So we got Gaffney and Brian Kennedy from Claremont to walk through the structure of this war. We're at war, folks. Understand, they're at war with us. Information war, cyber war, information war. Unrestricted warfare. They're looking for total victory, okay? That's why, and I love the hashtag War Room Crew for light me up about my going too easy on Gates. Yes, he is a running dog. He's a running dog of the Chinese Communist Party and his masters in Beijing. This is a bad guy, okay? We're going to peel away Bill Gates. And he's got that whole nerd thing. He does the nerd thing. No. At your core, this is why the investigation, think Dr. Ben Carson. Dr. Ben Carson has to be the new head of the World Health Organization, a brilliant brain surgeon from Johns Hopkins University, one of our greatest medical institutions in the world and certainly in the United States. We have to do a full investigation. President Trump's 100% correct. No more money to WHO. And the investigation has to drill down on the Gates Foundation, exactly what they're up to, where their money comes from, what other governments they've sucked into to how much money the CCP, how much money does Wan Xishan, how big a check does he stroke to Bill Gates? Okay? Bill Gates, how much are you? This is the whole establishment. It's all going to come out. It's all going to come out. Michael Pillsbury, Dr. Pillsbury wrote the great book, The 100-Year Marathon, which is the two ways to interpret, we're going to get a reading list up, unrestricted warfare, which is a little dense, is Spalding's Stealth Wars and Dr. Pillsbury's 100-Year Marathon. Now, Dr. Pillsbury refers to me and others of my colleagues as the Super Hawks, right? Those are the guys who want to directly confront the Chinese Communist Party. I take that as a compliment, Dr. Pillsbury. He's on Maria Bartiromo this morning about this letter that went out today from the Committee on the Present Danger talking about this issue that it's American, it's your money, it's your pension fund money, it's the military's money. Folks, this is what I want you to embrace. People are saying, Bannon, tell us what to do. Tell us what to do. Well, we're going to put up more information, learn, study, and then you can start lighting up your congressmen and your senators to take action. Remember, it is all your money that did this. And what do I mean by that? It was Wall Street, but Wall Street just manages institutional money. What is institutional money? Institutional money is basically pension funds and insurance company cash, okay? Your insurance policies, your pension funds. Basically what you put away for a rainy day to pass on to your kids to make sure that they've got some net worth and go forward. All of that money was what moved the factories to China. It's all those people. They're totally in business. And from their perspective, the business model works. The slave labor in China is certainly cheaper, right, than the serfs in the United States, although the serfs' labor is pretty cheap too, but not as cheap as the slave labor. So they moved to labor camp, and now they're defending him. Bill Gates has got to come clean. How much association does he have with the Chinese Communist Party? How much does the Gates Foundation take from the Chinese Communist Party? How in bed? And by the way, and eventually CDC and World Health, all of them, how much management, what did you have to do in the P2 lab? What did you have to do in the P4 lab? If Dr. Fauci and the infectious disease guys through the University of Texas at Galveston, it looks like has a $3.7 million program, we need to know that. We need to know that. We need to know all the details. So Nancy Pelosi, all you guys are going to be investigating. You got Clyburn sitting there going to want to light up President Trump and everybody. Hey, let's start. Why don't you call Gates? Let's start with Gates. Why don't you make him as your opening thing? Let's keep him for a couple of days. Let's get him up there and see what his drill is, right? He's in the moment of decision, right? When this whole thing, remember, this is the fog of war. This is the fog of war. We don't know how this thing's going to play out. They're going to write about this hundreds of years from now. We have no earthly idea how this is going to play out. I say we're in 1938. General Spalding, who I think is the smartest guy around, he broke my heart the other day. He said, hey, I think we're in 1944, and we're not on the winning side, okay? So that's the bid in the ask. That's the spread, right, between 38 and 44. Between 38 and we still have our destiny in our hands, and 44 we're backed up against the wall. But in either side, You have to make decisions, have to make sure. Bill Gates and Joe Biden on the 31st of January made a choice when Donald Trump stood up and said against Fauci and against Azar and against Mulvaney and against all the recommendations, except for Peter Navarro, God bless him, and said, hey, guess what? I'm going to take a pretty radical action. I'm going to stop air trafficking from China. And I'm going to quarantine everybody getting off a plane, if you got it, getting off a plane or whatever. Total meltdown of CNN, MSNBC. But and I expect that, because anything Trump says, they got to say the opposite. The most important thing is Beijing Biden at the moment. The guy, and this is what makes it so outrageous, the individual who President Obama deputized to do the pivot to Asia and to confront the Chinese Communist Party. President Obama knew when he took office that he had a problem. What did he mock Mitt Romney in the 2002 debate? Hey, when they asked Mitt Romney, what's the biggest threat we have? Russia. Russia. What did Obama mocked him? Hey, Mitt, the 1980s called and they want their foreign policy back. It's not Russia. Russia's a sideshow. Economy the size of New York State. Demographic death spiral. They produce oil and gas, which, by the way, them with their partner MBS just took a gangster hit on our fracking business. All you folks up in North Dakota, they have all the rigs being shut down in the Permian Basin, all the rigs shut down. No, this is a moment of decision. This is a moment of clarity. Who's on your side? You're out there at home. You're sheltered. You have no paycheck. You have no pension fund, right? All lost all its wealth. You have no of your institutions. You can't even worship, whether it's Ramadan, Passover, or the risen Christ. You can't worship as you, as a free man or woman, so choose, right? You know why? The Beijing Chinese Communist Party. Who's taking their side? Joe Biden. He called Trump a nativist, a racist, a xenophobe. And Bill Gates today. Oh, we don't have time. This all that. No, Bill, we got plenty of time, right? This is important. If Jack Maxey can see the blog on the 26th of December, and then Jack Maxey when we first started the show said, "Hey, you see this World Health thing? They put out a release on the 12th of January, and they knew they had. Why did they put out a tweet? Because Tedros and those guys want to give them more air cover. No human. Do you know how much blood's on their hands? How many deaths in Lombardy, in Europe, in the United States, in Queens, in Brooklyn, in South Africa, in Brazil? All the deaths. If they just hadn't Bill Gates, that's your World Health. Don't tell me how great the World Health Organization is. I don't want to hear they got this program and that program. Hey, when it counted, they covered up and lied, right? And that means Tedros, that was and they went and got the PPE. Remember, right after that, they're going to Australia, the United States, and Europe, and they're vacuuming up all the PPE because, one, they don't know how big the outbreak's going to be in China, although they've stopped all domestic travel. Lock everybody in place. Lock it and make sure nobody gets to Beijing and nobody gets to Shanghai. Lock it down in place. But we don't mind if you fly to the United States. We don't mind if you fly to Europe. We don't mind if you go to the Fashion Week, right? Go to Davos. Hey, I got a better idea. Go to the White House and go sign the Phase 1 deal. We got to get the Phase 1 deal because, we had another virus that killed half the hog population in the summer, right, that we've never sorted out. Half the hogs. That would be half the hogs owned by Smithfield, mainstream media, CNN. When you're doing all your hits on President Trump and the governor of South Dakota, you fail to mention in every story Smithfield Hams from the Commonwealth of Virginia, my home state, one of our great companies, owned and operated by the Chinese Communist Party, right? Why? Because hogs and pigs are a major part of the diet. They lose half of the hog population, 50%. And if you want to see something tough, tell a Chinese farmer he's got to kill his hog without selling it, right? The deplorables, Lao Beijing, old 100 names, they're like the Scottish, okay? Very thrifty, right? You walk into one of those brothers and say, hey, this all got to go, kill them all and send them out of here. It's like, what are you talking about? This is my livelihood, right? All of a sudden I'm poor. 50% of their things slaughtered. Couldn't be used because of another swine flu coming out of central China, right? Coming out of central China. Gates, you've had a choice, and you chose the CCP. You're partners with these butchers, okay? They give you money. You're in bed with them. The whole World Health Organization stinks to high heaven. We had Dave Ramaswamy was on when? Dave Ramaswamy was on episode like 5.
Right.
Ramaswamy comes on. One of the guys in back of the Howdy Modi thing, a fantastic businessman, our mathematician, tells us about exponentiality, all the graphs and charts. And one of the first things he gets into, he says, "Hey, I want to give you a heads up on this Tedros guy."
Yeah, this is before Tedros has even done anything. He says, "Listen, I had some dealings with him back in Ethiopia, and he was reputed to have covered up cholera epidemics." Now, we kind of kept it quiet, and then what?
I mean, we started talking about it. So what tell us about this Tedros guy? He goes, "Oh, yeah, he's the Maoist party, and he covered up 3 cholera outbreaks." Right? He said, this guy's a bad... And Dave Ramaswamy said, this guy's a bad dude. And so we got to start tracking this guy.
Bad hombre. And then actually had people from Ethiopia contact us and tell us, yes, he's a bad person. So this isn't something that's just coming out of nowhere. I think the one key thing, though, about Bill Gates, if I can go back for 1 second, this is the danger with these globalists. You know, I got up as a little kid, put my hand over my heart, and swore myself to my flag. This guy's given the choice. And where's his default? It's next to a hammer and sickle and the Communist Chinese Party over his country. That's all that I need to know.
And not just that, over the Chinese people. He's not helping the Chinese people.
Oh, of course.
Remember, keep in mind, like we're coaching everybody up. 1.4 billion Chinese. I actually think it's 1.5 billion, but hey, that's a topic for another day. 1.4 billion Chinese. There's only 90 million guys in the Chinese Communist Party, right? And what you see locally, we had over the show the last couple of weeks, and the Chinese are actually sitting there telling you what life is like. That's the ones that, in Wuhan, that's the ones that came knocking to your door, right? They're the house supervisor, like being in a dorm, the dorm rep. They come and say, hey, you got to be tested or we're kicking your door down. But it's only like 1,000 that matter. One of the things you're going to see here, and one of the things we're going to get reparations, we're going to take their asset, right? Tom Cotton, Crenshaw, Hawley, Rubio, these fire breathers, Banks of Indiana. You're starting to see, and by the way, if you're a congressman out there, and I got a former congressman, highly respected, very close to, texted me all morning and says, hey, I'm hearing from all my guys on the Hill. They want to run away. A lot of the guys don't want to face up to here. They think they got businesses owned by the Chinese in their districts. These guys are powerful. McCarthy, this $1 billion deal that was done out with Gavin Newsom, signed this $1 billion mass deal with what the rail maker of this rail maker out in China about doing mass now. And a lot of these guys in districts are worried about, hey, you're going to have to choose a side. You're going to choose a side. This is like 1938. You don't get to, no. You got to choose a side. You either for them or against them, okay? And against them means against them in every aspect of what they do. They have to be held accountable. President Trump said, knowingly responsible. Knowingly responsible.
One of our viewers just sent us an article from 2017 where Bill Gates was elected as a foreign academician at the Chinese Academy of Engineering. This is apparently a great honor. Now, this is in 2017. I wonder, what does Bill Gates know about the Academy of Chinese Engineering's attempt to change the engineering standards for planet Earth? And is he cooperating with that?
Questions that we're going to peel back. By the way, we're crowdsourcing now, Bill Gates. We're crowdsourcing your culpability. You running dog. The thing is, like, fellow traveler, I think running dog's the highest.
This is when you know you're hitting it. One of our listeners also just said, Bill Gates fell in line with the CCP. Very simple. Running dog.
Running dog.
The thing that's ironic here is everyone knows, Steve, that you're still using MS-DOS. And so
that's very interesting. You say that. Take a short break. We'll be back. War Room Pandemic in a moment. Got so much to get through. Is it?
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, we're doing 1 hour specials we'll have up after the regular show. We're doing an entire week on the Committee on the Present Danger, China, to talk about this. We're getting now down into beatdown time on CCP. Time to take the gloves off. We're tired of it. We're tired of how they compromise our elites. The reason Donald J. Trump is the 45th president of the United States is the managed decline of the greatest country in the history of mankind, right? And by the way, if you have to have decline, why do you do it with a group of gangsters like the Chinese Communist Party? Okay? An ancient civilization, 4,000 years old. They brutalize their own people, right? The Chinese people, look how, we talk about these students and kids come here and you look at in Hong Kong and Taiwan, the great young patriots in Hong Kong, how great they do at universities, how smart they are. They treat probably the oldest civilization, let's say a coin flip with Egypt, right? Or some of the things in Central Africa, but you take the African continent and you add China, you got some of the one of the most ancient civilizations, at least organized over 2,000, 4,000 years. And they can't have access to the internet. They have to have a digital gulag around them, the firewall. You can't get to it. On Guo Media and GTV later in the day, every day we subtitle this in Mandarin. On the weekend shows, those special we do, they subtitle in Mandarin, blows right through the firewall. Takes a huge effort and a lot of money to do that, to blow through the firewall, get to the VPNs. The people, it's like radio. It's like in Russia back in the old days. They get the VPN and then the whole family gets to see it, right? It's not easy. It's hard. We got real technicians in this company that we partner with to do that. It's a lot of money. They're very technical. And the Chinese Communist Party, with American technology and American capital, shut it down every other day. You got to be smart about how you do it. This is where we are. And we appreciate, I greatly love the fact of #war and pandemic. This is a community. Look, there's no Ubermensch, right? There's no Superman that's going to come in here. None of these comic books, you watch these ridiculously stupid movies. Okay, there's no Superman or collection of people with superpowers that are going to come in here. This has got to be like in the Revolution, the Civil War, and in World War II. We got to come together, okay? Progressives, right-wingers, everybody in the middle. We have to stand up for humanity, and we have to stand up for the people in China. And the way we do it is start taking on the running dogs of Bill Gates and the rest of these elites who have sold you out, sold the Chinese people out, and sold out the world. And here's what they sold it out for. It's not ideology. You can't. The Chinese Communist Party at the top level has no ideology. They're total atheists. It's all about money. It's materialism, pure money, power and money. It's not like for some greater idea that just because the Chinese people don't want this form of communism and dictatorship. That's where they got. That's where they got the digital gulag. That's where they have the social credit score. Why is Dr. Lee dead? Dr. Lee, the great hero, he's the one that exposes. If we had just listened to if they had just let a little ophthalmologist, a little irrelevant in Wuhan, talking to his 8 buddies from medical school, that said, hey, we're seeing this coming to the things now. We got another SARS outbreak, human-to-human transmission, community spread. We got a problem. We got to get on it or it's going to be bad. If we just listened to the little ophthalmologist, all of this would have been averted. Bill Gates, Mr. Worth $100 billion, sits on the board of Berkshire Hathaway, or I guess he doesn't, right? Did Charlie Munger throw him off, or did because he and I'm no big fan of the Oracle of Omaha either. That guy's crooked as a dog's hind leg. Warren Buffett, right? You saw what he did in the last. Peter Schweitzer went through in detail what he did in the financial crisis of 2008. He was in there money grubbing with Goldman Sachs and all of them, right? We've blown through so much of the show. You guys got me triggered. Well, all you got to do is don't get me stink eye. Get the chair up like the lion thing and just say, calm down.
Listen, it is great. One of the things I love, Steve, is watching these people who you can see them on our Twitter feed. They've been following us for a while, and literally watching them just become indoctrinated into this understanding that they knew nothing about. Right? These people are becoming educated about this evil empire, and that to me is the most positive thing coming out.
Lee Smith, the next writer we have, Lee Smith, has said for years he's been focused on the Middle East, and recently, and he's been on fire. I mean, he lit up Feinstein. He's lit up the elite in this thing. We're going to have him in the next episode.
Get in hydroxy.
No, right for hydroxy, I want to go to the Republican Party. Yep. You're a professional in this. They came out last week. The article started in Politico. Alex Eisenstadt typed it up. They basically dictated him. Alex, good job, though. It was a great article. And you had the memo about how the Republican Party is now going to pivot to taking on the CCP, right? Now, the buried lead there is that, at least the way it was described, they're not going to defend President Trump's handling of the pandemic. They immediately want to go to the travel ban, right, from China, and then to attack Biden. It's kind of a little bit what I did on Jesse Waters on Saturday night, which to me just a natural. You got to do that. You got to bring up the fact that when the moment it counted, Biden campaign, you make all the ads you want to President Trump saying she's a nice guy. Not relevant. When it counted. When Biden had to act as a commander-in-chief, he took the party line of Beijing. He sided with the criminals. And he sided he went on the side of the criminals in the sleaziest way you do. What do you do? You're xenophobic. You're nativist. You're racist, right? That's not what this was about at all. Actually, this was to help the Chinese people to make sure this thing wouldn't spread all over the world and we have this massive blowback, right? What Trump did was a profile in courage, and he was lit up by the mainstream media, lit up by Nancy Pelosi. You know, all these guys are now saying, oh, we want to be data-driven, we want to be science-driven, we want to be this driven. Well, when it counted in January, you chose your side. Now we've got the story in the Washington Post, a story in the New York Times, a story in Politico, all saying about how they're pivoting. What's your assessment? I've gone through the 57-page. What I like about it is that they're saying it's not the Chinese people and it's not China. It's the CCP. That's what it is. Focus on, let's have all lead on the target, okay? The target is the Chinese Communist Party. We're going to expose the wealth of Xi and his family in the United States of America. We're going to expose the wealth of Wan Xishan in the United States of America. How do these guys that are supposed to be communist in China, how do they own so much real estate? How do they own so much stocks? How do they own so much wealth? You're out there laboring. You have no income. Embrace this. You have no paycheck. You have no net worth. You have no cash on hand. You're inside on a beautiful spring day, right? And you got a guy in Beijing, a gangster, and this gangster is worth billions of dollars and being feted, right? These guys are being feted by the high society, your betters, the swells in New York, Asia Society, Council on Foreign Relations, all these things, right? Your betters. Well, you have nothing. And even worse, the people in China, old Lao Baijing, old 100 names, which is the common man in China, they have worse than nothing. They're treated by nothing like slaves. You saw in Wuhan how they're treated. They'll kick down the door and they're going to take your temperature. And if they deem you got it, hey, baby, you're going to equivalent of a London fever hospital of the 19th century, 18th century. And there's one ticket out of the for that. Your ticket is to go be cremated. Not with your family, not have the thing, you know, guys, when their mothers die in China, they don't shave I don't think they bathe for 100 days. They're in mourning because of the family's so critical. Hey, you're in Wuhan. Here's what the CCP says. They back the truck up. They take your body out. And I think it was Radio Free Asia actually reported a lot of times when they're at the cremation place, the guys are screaming, maybe you're not that dead. They just figured they need a bed. You got to go, right? The other thing is that when they got the 40,000, only 1,500 people died or some ridiculous number, the 40,000 Jack things, when you actually open it up, you know, mom had perfect teeth, but you got a guy's dentures in there. You realize they burned them all like in one common thing, and you just got your prorated thing of ashes, okay? The psychological scars, and they don't care. You know why they don't care? Because Bill Gates is their front man, right? Bill Gates is their front man. Why should they care? Heck with you listening to War Room Pandemic. What are you, a bunch of nut jobs? Heck with you. We got the richest guy. We got a guy, not the richest, $100 billion. I don't know what he's worth. A lot, right? He's the front man. Hey, we don't need to think. We don't need to think. No, there's no responsibility. We need to focus on it. No. We need to go back. We need to look at the lab. The Gates organization has got to be investigated, right? Accessories before the fact.
Hey, deplorables out there also remember that giant Gates Foundation is a tax-free foundation set up so that Bill and Melinda can play their globalist games without any financial consequences.
This is a whole nother scam. The way these things are set up, we'll have a special hour in this. This is another scam. What they do is they put the stock over there in a tax-free transaction, right? They don't pay any taxes on it. You working at a 7-Eleven, right? You're paying your taxes. They're going to shake you down for everything you got, right? It was 50% of the American population don't have $400 in your bank account, right? The reason is that it's a rigged system. And the rigged system is Bill Gates and all these foundations, they can transfer this thing over totally tax-free and then tell you, first off, side with the enemies of mankind and then tell you how you're going to live your life, right?
Yeah, more than that, they can even pay themselves up to 4 or 5% of the value of that foundation every year without any other consequences.
Tax-free, baby. Here's the other thing, is that then they come around the White House, we've got the tin cup, wants more money, wants government money. That was a short meeting. I said, I got to go. I got important things to focus on. We're not giving you any money. Now, I'm not saying some money didn't get through the budget. Look, in a $4.3 trillion budget, I'm sure they're seeping out everywhere, right? I'm sure we're going to have – this is why it's got to be investigated. What is he doing with the CDC? What is he doing with NIH? What are these guys all doing? Who's over there? Who's doing what? Why is Fauci's NIH? I'm just saying what the facts are. Why do we have this thing coming through Galveston, University of Texas? Why are the American taxpayers – why are we funding research in labs that are out of control in China? Why are we doing that? Why are we helping Chernobyl put more, get the core reactor even more jigged up, right? We'll come back in a minute. I promise, no monologue.
Speaking of jigged up.
No, I'm going to get Jack Maxey for why hydroxy. I go to sleep at night thinking hydroxy will save me, and I wake up, the Mayo Clinic is dumping all over Jack Maxey. We'll take that on next segment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to War Room Pandemic. I'm now going to get off my soapbox and turn it over to we've got hydroxy. This comes under the heading of therapeutics. Therapeutics is one angle of attack. To get this thing under control, we have many angles of attack, but therapeutics and testing, both surveillance testing and antibodies testing. It's not perfect. We're trying. Well, the French have a saying, first engage and then figure it out. We're engaged, and we're trying to figure it out. We're riding to the sound of the guns when it comes to therapeutics. Abe's got this pill in Japan. He's humping that big time. That may turn out. You got Fort Detrick. I got a report from my security my intel forces. Was one Raheem Kassan? Were you hanging outside the gate of Fort Detrick?
Just hanging out yesterday afternoon, just chilling.
Isn't there a shelter in place in Washington D.C.? Did you have a mask?
I had a mask. I had gloves.
Do you just take your cravat and just turn it into a mask? You're like Nancy Pelosi.
That's it. You just put it right over there. No, I went up to Monocacy.
It's beautiful up there.
Extraordinary piece of history that people forget. Actually, how close the Union was from falling at that point.
Right up there. I'm telling you, the whole Frederick. That was the lead into to Gettysburg, which we'll have to take you up there. Have you ever been to Gettysburg?
I've been to Gettysburg. I've never been to Antietam.
Okay, we have to. Antietam is just absolutely stunning. Absolutely beautiful, magnificent place. Every day we're having Antietam now here with folks dying. We're going to be we've passed the civilian casualties in the Civil War already today, and we'll pass Vietnam, you think, by the time they don't do the press briefing this afternoon, Mr. Jason Miller? Don't think we'll get there. Maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, maybe tomorrow.
Bad though. Okay, so hydroxy, which we've talked about from episode 1 in this, talking about therapeutics, and it's got to be at doctor's orders, but things are out there. Jack, no offense, brother. So I get up today, we're doing the morning watch, we're going back and forth, what's up, what's happened overnight, what are the polls, and man, they're bringing the heat on Jack Maxey like I've never seen. They got Mayo Clinic. I mean, they got the biggest names in the country, and they're citing the Brazil study. Right, let's play some of these. I think we got Birx and we got Mayo Clinic, and we also have Gottlieb.
Let's go to Mayo Clinic first.
What was your reaction to the news in the Journal from American Medical Association? Obviously, this is something you'd been on the lookout for.
Unfortunately, we're not surprised. As you know, we were with you, Becky, and we put out this warning from Mayo Clinic and the Mayo Clinic proceedings on March 25th. Hard to believe it's been over a month ago. And in the Brazilian study that's in the paper that you talked about, at least with the Brazilian Corona cocktail, which was really a high dose of chloroquine, 600 milligrams twice a day, plus azithromycin or the Z-Pack, that combination, the Brazilian Corona cocktail, is absolutely deadly. There was over 2 times the mortality rate in those patients randomized to receive the high-dose cocktail rather than the standard or the lower dose.
His name is Jack Maxey. Now, he does say, I don't know if we have the whole clip, he does say later, let's go to this first, before we get to the buried lead, which was He said, hey, for a prophylactic, it's fine. But Jack, you've talked many times about these studies and about how they're done. Walk back through what the Mayo Clinic's saying about the cocktail, particularly in the Brazil study.
Well, if they were taking 600 milligrams of chloroquine rather than the hydroxychloroquine, that is you would take about half that amount in the studies that have been done elsewhere. I think that it was a poorly done study. If you saw it was only 12 patients, it shows you that the excitement for bashing anything that might be positive here is palpable among certain sectors. One thing that I will say about the chloroquine, I think we've said this from the day one, is that it is not a magic bullet. It is a bridging device similar to the ventilator, right? If I show up and my house is on fire, the garden hose is not going to save it. But if there's just a little fire in a trash can, the garden hose might. And that's the importance of the hydroxychloroquine. It's also the importance of the remdesivir. Now, people are saying all these bad things, but NewJersey.com had a wonderful story that was published this morning about a Dr. Bannon. He works at a hospital, a well-loved guy. He came down with the COVID-19. He was in a state where they thought they were going to have to put him on a ventilator. The doctors in that hospital did. They gave him a cocktail of remdesivir. They gave him a cocktail of hydroxychloroquine. They gave him a cocktail of the azithromycin. They gave him the ivermectin. You know why? Because these are doctors, and their objective is to first do no harm. And these guys are scientists on the front lines trying to save lives. So this Monday morning quarterback from everybody trying to rip outcomes and to find something so that they can stick a pin in the Cupid doll of Donald Trump is, to me, foolish.
Let's go. Mayo Clinic, the buried lead. Let's continue on because I think he gets Maxey in the team off the hook but it's like 10 minutes into the interview.
I think in the sick patient, that's really a great question because in the sick patient, we are just not seeing a signal of efficacy of therapeutic benefit in hospitalized sick COVID-19. So backs up against the wall, nothing else to try. Could we continue to try the Corona cocktail? Perhaps, but we really need to lean on our infectious disease experts and say, what other options might we have? And if we're going to use these medicines in the sick patient, we really need to be on our A game because we're starting to put together the perfect storm. On the other hand, I'm really actually quite excited to learn from the clinical trials about what the use of a medication like hydroxychloroquine might mean in the relatively healthy patient in the setting of post-exposure prophylactic therapy. We could have a completely different answer there where what if there is benefit with hydroxychloroquine? That person, that kind of a person is a completely different safety profile host where we might have a lot more safety margin to be able to use a medication like this if it helps prevent the development of the disease. So
I could hug you, Jack Maxey. No, because this is the buried lead. This is the thing that should be tweeted out. This guy's kind of a hater, right? He took this, he's just carpet bombing that, and it's actually he's implying, to your point, first do no harm. This did harm when used in sick patients. I'm just saying what he's saying from Mayo Clinic. But the buried lead, the story, he comes back in and says, oh, by the way, for guys that don't have it, this is a great prophylactic, right?
And they're doing this in India right now. In Mumbai, they have what they think is going to be a hotspot that's going to blow up inside of a very poor community in the city. So we're talking about thousands and thousands of people living on top of each other. Just this past week, they decided to go out and provide prophylactic dosages for 20,000 people to see if it will have an impact on the spread of the disease. They already have between 5,000 and 10,000 healthcare workers in India who are taking this prophylactically. Now, I have heard from multiple doctors, and we also heard it from Dr. Zelenko, that multiple doctors, now maybe they're not saying it openly, but they're taking this prophylactically too, and they're using the same dosaging standards that the
This is the
Indians
reason
have.
we didn't have the high casualty rates they had in Lombardy, in New York City, in the tri-state area. We're going to find out over time. What's the over and under in this? That it was because the doctor nurses teams took this as a prophylactic.
I agree with you, and I think one of the things that we have said from day one on this, by the time you get into a hospital and you are on a ventilator, it is too late, and we see this over and over again. The same thing with the New Jersey guys today in that same article. They had some other things. They said it's been shown over and over again that once a patient is placed on the ventilator, the outcome is no good. That's why you have to start these therapeutics at the first sign of symptoms. Right? You can't try and save someone who's already on their deathbed.
Or like Jack Maxey handing them out like gumdrops here in the war room. That would be Dr. Jack Maxey. We got to check your license later. Okay. I want to bring in Lee Smith now. Lee, as you know, was all over the impeachment of Ukraine, all the investigations, one of the top investigative reporters around, has now shifted his focus to China. The elite's got to be worried. When your secretary says, Mr. Lee Smith on line 2, you know you have a problem. So, Lee, talk to us about that. Let's start with the Feinstein article, and we're going to hold you over to the next segment. Talk to us about Feinstein,
Great.
and then go to the story you do today about America's elites, how they sold out the country.
All right, look, I mean, Feinstein is actually, she's sort of at the center of this, and she embodies it. I mean, there were different people from her home state of California at the LA Times and San Francisco Chronicle who were paying attention to her relationship to the former Chinese president, Jiang Zemin, but for the most part, no one was paying attention. And the fact that she was head of the Senate Intelligence Committee from 2009 to 2015 basically tells you everything you need to know about what's been going on Capitol Hill and with our elites for, I would say since Kissinger. There have been people, as I write in my article today, there are people whose attention has been captured by this. Senator Cotton is one of them. Congressman Gallagher is another. There are others as well. But the point is we're playing catch up right now.
Let's be specific. Her husband, they have a joint venture. They're an investor, deep investor in China, and she was one of the driving forces back at the turn of the century for WTO, most favored nation. The thing, remember, Miles Guo always says China's GDP the day before the WTO was like $1.7 trillion, right? They were half the size of Japan. Now they're the size of the United States because of WTO, because of most favored nations, and because our elites sat there and lied to the American people about what this meant.
I mean, look, it continues. If you see the different rankings of who has money on Capitol Hill, and Feinstein is ranked something like 5th or 6th. But if you add in, rationally, the amount of money her husband has, which a decade ago was at $1 billion. And yes, he has had a very healthy investment portfolio in China. And the idea that people have turned a blind eye to this, look, it's not just because they're giving Feinstein a break. The problem is it indicates a larger problem, that everyone wanted a piece of this, both because of greed and because of an extremely bad idea that somehow we're going to tame the Chinese Communist Party out of communism, and we're going to be able to import international norms, and someday they will look the way we do. This happens to be a very old American idea. It's essentially a missionary vision of American foreign policy. We can explain to them their best interest. We did it in the Middle East. We did it with the Chinese, and that's where our foreign policy is turned into.
Lee, how do people get more access? You just got these 2 stories up. How are you driving this narrative? Now that you told me, hey, I'm focused 100% on this thing stinks to high heaven, these investigations should be done years ago. What's the driving force? Where are you heading with this investigation? Because you started with Feinstein, the first article we have up, her corruption. Now you're focused on all the American elites. Where are you going in this?
I mean, there's a tremendous amount there. I mean, what I want to look at more wholly is, well, look, it's very important, right? What's happened since this Russiagate nonsense. So here's a way that I think about it tied together. This Russiagate nonsense and the Russian disinformation campaign and what they spent $100,000 on Facebook ads. As it turns out, the real disinformation campaign, the very active and very serious propaganda campaign, has been waged by the Chinese Communist Party. And I think that that most of your audience, and I think many Americans, cannot have failed that the U.S. press's coverage of the coronavirus, as well as U.S. politics generally, dovetails in very unpleasant ways with Chinese Communist Party propaganda. So I think that's a very important thing. What I'm looking at, what I think is most important, is what's happening in Washington and with our elites. Certainly what's happening in Beijing is very important, but the focus is, the first question that we need to ask for American foreign policy is not what Chinese culture is like, not necessarily what Chinese strategy is like, but what is key for American interest, to start with that. And so that's where we need to go back to.
Lee, thank you very much. We'll have both up on our site, drive traffic to you. We'll have you back on. Fantastic. Lee Smith, one of the top investigative reporters around. Focus now on the corruption of American elites of all political persuasions. We'll take a short break. Back with Kris Kobach in Kansas in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back. War and Pandemic. This entire take on the CCP is the defining issue of the 2020 campaign. Jason Miller and I and Raheem have talked about this many, many times in the past. But now, Jason, real quickly, Kris Kobach's coming on. We're trying to hook him in with Skype. Kris, do we have you? We're trying to get Kris Kobach in. If we can't do it, he's got a new ad out. He's putting up tomorrow, I think it is. Got a big buy in Kansas. And this is kind of following along the lines of the NRSC strategy memo, which says focus on the Chinese Communist Party.
Yep, here's the ad.
China lied and a deadly virus infected the world. President Trump banned flights, but Kris Kobach alerted us that 12,000 Chinese snuck across our border last year. No testing, no screening.
We must hold China accountable and build President Trump's wall. If the back door is wide open, locking the front door isn't enough.
Kobach has advised Trump on border security for 4 years, and Kobach led construction of privately funded border wall. Kris Kobach, keeping America safe.
I'm Kris Kobach.
So Kris is one of our partners on the We Build the Wall. He's been our general counsel there from the beginning to build the wall. This was a combo platter, right? You got both. You got Kobach. Got Kobach's wall, his immigration, and China all in one swoop. Is that is that pretty powerful to jam all that in there for one, so the folks in Kansas are alert to what's really going on? Jason Miller?
Yeah, obviously Kris has a very strong rep as being one of the strongest anti-illegal immigration advocates out there in the country. Obviously, he's advised President Trump. China is the hot issue of the day. I think that's going to get people's attention.
Hey, Kris, do people care in Kansas? Is this thing about understanding about this whole debacle that we've gone through is back to the Chinese Communist Party? Are folks in Kansas woke?
Well, they're certainly very much aware of this problem, and they very much care about the fault that lies with China.
Well, did you say in the ad, did I catch, is it 1,200 or 12,000?
12,000 these nationals successfully snuck into the United States fiscal year 29, over 12,000.
And where do you pull that stat from?
That's based on Border Patrol reports from mainly from the Grand Valley sector, but coming from other sectors as well. And then we have additional numbers from this year, since January, of additional Chinese nationals who have been caught sneaking into the United States across and this is after the President Trump shut down travel from China. So this is a big problem. Anytime you have a pandemic, you have to be able to control who gets into your country. And because Congress delayed and did not give President Trump the full amount he asked for when they finally did act, our back door is wide open. We're closing the front doors as President Trump has ordered, and that's absolutely necessary. But we've got to have control of our border as well.
Is this as this race starts to come in focus in Kansas, and obviously, it's front page everywhere about holding the Senate, about how important the Senate is, given what a dogfight it looks like it's going to be for the White House. What is this going to be an issue? Is this whole thing about the pandemic going to be the issue, the defining issue in the Kansas race?
I think it's going to end up being one of the top three issues, if not the issue. Look, I think we need to have something along the lines of a 9/11 commission, and it needs to get going right away. We already know China lied. We already know China delayed. We already know that it came from the Wuhan laboratory. The remaining questions are, what are the true numbers of Chinese dead? Was this thing engineered, or was it a naturally occurring virus? There's so many other questions as well, and we have to hold China responsible. Look, think about the Americans who died because of 9/11. we immediately, as a country, acted, and we held Al-Qaeda accountable. We held the Taliban accountable. This is a similar level of additional deaths caused by Chinese actions. I'm talking about the deaths over and above that would have occurred if China had behaved responsibly and if China had behaved like an ally. We have to treat China as an adversary, and we have to hold them accountable in the same way that we acted with the 9/11 Commission to find out where the blame lay at that time.
So Bill Gates just said that yesterday or today at the Times of London that we don't need to do that. We need to focus on now, and we don't have time for that. That comes later. Is Bill Gates wrong in that? Are you saying that Bill Gates is wrong and we need to get on top of what happened here immediately?
Yeah, Bill Gates is wrong. We can walk and chew gum. We have to. We can address the problem. We can address the crisis and reopen this country responsibly. At the same time that we investigate how this all happened in the first place and what did China know, what didn't China know, and we absolutely have to start rebuilding American capacity to build the antibiotics, to create antibiotics, more broadly. All the other things, the PPE that need to be made in America, that has to happen regardless, even if we remain in ignorance about the unanswered questions.
Okay, you've got a number of fire breathers now in the United States Senate. Josh Hawley of Missouri, Marco Rubio of Florida, Tom Cotton of Arkansas, even Ted Cruz in Texas. They're all saying we ought to be looking at stripping their sovereign immunity. We ought to be empowering these state attorney generals and the American people to go after these people for compensation/reparations. Would you join Hawley, Rubio, Cotton, Cruz, and others, even Lindsey Graham saying sanction these guys? Would you join that group of what I call the super hawks in taking on the Chinese Communist Party?
Absolutely. And we need, in addition to them, plus me, we need other senators to step up and say, look, enough is enough. I mean, there's been this deafening silence regarding China's culpability and regarding the outsourcing of so much of our medicines, so much of our strategically important products have been outsourced to China, and the silence has been deafening. And if some senators want to have a moment on the road to Damascus where they realize where they're going, we'll stand shoulder with Hawley, Cruz, and the others who are taking a tough line here.
So, Kris, how do people get access to your ad? How do they get access to your campaign? How do they get more access to you?
Go to the website, kriskobach.com. And also, they can ask me questions directly. We've been doing Facebook Live events. We've been doing Zoom events as well. We're trying to maintain communications with the people of Kansas and with conservatives more broadly across this country.
Kris Kobach, thank you. Tough race out there in Kansas. Good luck, sir. Kris Kobach now with a new ad out called China Lied, which ties together the border security from all that. Okay, tomorrow morning, another. Today, the president looks like he's probably not going to do a press briefing. They're going to bring the cameras into the cabinet. Make sure at 4 o'clock, americasvoice.news, the platform for the Trump revolution, will have it all live, so make sure you watch it with our partners there. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock.